This is the most tightly guarded prison in the world. Even if a prisoner manages to escape from the prison, they won't be able to get ashore, because even if leave by boat have to refuel several times on the way. And the prisoners here are all sentenced to life imprisonment. Staying here can be regarded as finding a nursing home for their later years, as long as you don't die of illness or old age. 3 meals a day will be provided on time here. After lunch you can lie on the ground and soak up the sun on time, because the sun will disappear from above your head in 5 minutes. However, this is also the only time they can see the sun every day. This man's name is Edmund. He has been imprisoned here for decades. Every day here he dreams about how to escape from here. So far he hasn't been able to think of any way to get out. One day when he was sleeping he heard an unusual noise. He quickly got up to check the source of the sound. Suddenly he saw that the stones on the wall inexplicably fell down. He heard someone digging inside, so he quickly picked up the spoon used for eating and began to pry. Soon he removed a stone. He saw an old man inside. The old man said that he was also a prisoner here, but at this moment the jailer above began to check on the prisoners. Only after every prisoner in each cell responded did he leave. Edmund then started digging towards the old man's position. He quickly removed several bricks from the wall. Then he crawled into the passage along it. Before long he found the light inside. At the end of the passage was the old man's cell. He soon climbed out of the hole. Under the guidance of the old man the two successfully connected. This was the first person he had seen in 10 years since he was imprisoned here. The two hugged each other excitedly in the dark and gloomy cell. It turned out that the old man had been waiting for someone all the time. The purpose was to find a companion to work together to escape from here. Then the two began to study how to escape from here. The old man said that he had been imprisoned here for 30 years. It took him 10 years to dig a 30-meter long tunnel. Finally, he dug through Edmund's cell. The old man told Edmund that as long as he bypassed his cell, he could successfully escape from here. But this is not an easy thing. And he told him that it would take at least another 20 years to dig through the tunnel. But if two people dug together, the time might be shortened. Edmund seemed a little disappointed, but there was no better way for the time being. The old man said that this project was a huge task. To successfully dig through the tunnel and escape, one must have a strong and healthy body. After all, his age was getting worse day by day. In the future, the task of digging through the tunnel would rely on Edmund. In order to escape, one day Edmund began to exercise every day. He had to eat 3 meals a day and eat enough. He persisted like this for several months. During the day he exercised when he had nothing to do. At night he dug tunnels with the old man. They endured one winter after another like this. During the day when they had nothing to do, the two sat together and chatted. At night they continued to dig tunnels. One day when the two were sitting together chatting, they talked about the reasons why they were imprisoned here. It turned out that Edmund was mysteriously arrested at his wedding 10 years ago. Then he was mysteriously imprisoned here. As for the reason why he was imprisoned, he still doesn't know to this day. The old man, on the other hand, was a monk in a temple, because 30 years ago he practiced magic for a king. The purpose was to choose a feng shui treasure land for him, because this king had a large amount of wealth. He wanted to keep these treasures safely. Finally, under the guidance of the old man, those treasures were successfully hidden. But soon after, the king died of illness. The only person who knew about these treasures was him. In order to find those treasures, the king's son arrested the old man. But the old man knew the consequences of revealing the location of the treasures, so no matter what, he didn't reveal the whereabouts of the treasures. Finally, he was imprisoned here for 30 years. Now he wants to escape with Edmund, find those treasures, and promised to give him half of the wealth. Edmund agreed to the old man's request. The two then began their arduous tunnel life. They dug day after day, year after year. One day they finally saw hope. When the old man was digging, he accidentally dug into the water source. He knew that this might be the end of digging through the seawater. The two were extremely excited inside, but things didn't go as expected. At this critical moment, there was a collapse above the old man's head. Before the two could react, the old man was instantly swallowed by the soil. Edmund desperately began to dig out the soil on the ground. Finally, he found one of the old man's feet. He struggled to drag the old man out. Then he put him on the ground. Fortunately, the old man still had a breath. Edmund didn't want to see the old man die like this. He wanted to call the jailers above to treat the old man, but was promptly stopped by the old man, because he knew that once the matter of digging tunnels was exposed, all these years of hard work would be in vain. However, under the strong pressure in the narrow tunnel, the old man's internal organs were seriously injured. He knew that his life might be short, so he left the unfinished task to Edmund. He hoped that Edmund could successfully escape from here, then find those treasures and do some good deeds. Then he closed his eyes and left this world. At this moment, Edmund didn't know how to deal with it next. Without the guidance of the old man, he didn't know if he could complete this arduous task. Then he hugged the dead old man and started crying. Today the jailer started to inspect the prisoners as usual. When he came to the old man's cell, there was no response inside. The jailer shouted a few more times but still got no response. So he quickly unlocked the door of the dungeon with a key. When he showed his torch inside, he found that the old man was lying there motionless. At this moment, Edmund quickly blocked up the tunnel and hid inside. He watched the jailer throw down a rope and jump down. After confirming the real death of the old man, he let them throw down a burlap bag. Edmund knew they were going to put the old man's body in the burlap bag and take it away. At this moment, he had an amazing idea. While the jailer climbed up to the cell to call for help, he quietly hid the old man's body in his own cell. Then he crawled into the burlap bag for the old man. Soon he was pulled up by two jailers. Then the two carried the burlap bag and walked outside. At this time a head jailer appeared here. After asking about the identity of the deceased, he continued the inspection. At this time the two jailers had no idea that the burlap bag did not contain the old man, but the prisoner Edmund. When the man inspected Edmund's cell, he couldn't hear Edmund's response all the time. He quickly opened the cell door. At this moment Edmund had been brought to the seaside by the jailer, and the head jailer was also climbing down into Edmund's cell. He tried to kick Edmund and found no movement. When he lifted the mask he found that it wasn't Edmund. Only then did he realize that he had been switched. He quickly shouted upwards. But at this time the two jailers were at the seaside position. They had already lifted the burlap bag and were about to throw it into the sea. No matter how hard he shouted they couldn't hear him. Then Edmund was successfully thrown down. In the water Edmund quickly untied the rope of the burlap bag. After struggling for a while he swam out of the sea, relying on his strong willpower and the task given to him by the old man. After 7 days and 7 nights, he miraculously swam to the seaside. Exhausted he walked along the mountains. On the way he jumped over a wall and came to a household. He put on a set of clothes for himself. Then relying on a vague memory he returned home. Unexpectedly the once spacious and clean courtyard had grown so much weeds. At this time a woman appeared behind him. The woman told Edmund his father had died more than a decade ago. The reason for his death was that he was arrested. His father couldn't bear the blow and finally died of illness. Then he asked about his newlywed wife, but the woman said that his wife had married someone else. Edmund never expected. So many changes had taken place in his family over the years. At this moment he felt desperate and helpless. He bowed his head and wiped away the tears that flowed out. Then he decided to fulfill the old man's last wish first. After all, he was able to escape entirely thanks to the old man. He walked all the way to a seaside and rented a boat. Then he set sail along the location told by the old man. After a voyage of up to 3 months, he finally saw the island mentioned by the old man. The old man told him that as long as he found those treasures, then he could dominate the whole world. Then he searched along the island for 3 days and 3 nights. Finally, he arrived at his destination. He twisted the mechanism in the statue. A stone or beside it was slowly opened. Then he carefully walked in. He lit a torch. Then he started looking deep into the cave entrance. But after walking a short distance he found that there was no way ahead. After observing the surroundings he found that it looked like a deep well. He suspected that the treasures might be hidden underneath, so he threw his torch down as well. At the moment the torch hit the ground, he finally saw those magnificent treasures. At this moment Edmund finally fulfilled the old man's last wish. Finally he came to the temple where the old man used to be, and he inherited the old man's identity and became a monk. He swore to the old man that he would definitely use those treasures for justice, and he also built the world's largest temple for the old man to commemorate him. The movie ends here.